RLCraft, the hardest mod pack in all of Minecraft. What a joy. In this mod pack, the world is full of dragons, ghosts and ghouls and everything spooky scary that can and will take your life. The world is a truly dangerous landscape, littered with dungeons, battle towers and so many more truly challenging feats to tackle. In this series, I'll be attempting to survive 100 days in RLCraft. Day 16. I continue to ransack the villagers' manor, taking everything they had to offer. They won't need it anyway. I mean, they can't even protect their own village from monsters, and we already know the zombies outside. Day 17. After returning to my base with my pirate booty, I leveled up some of my skills to increase my proficiency and self-reliance. This gave me a bonus to my woodcutting and stone cutting skills and the harvesting speeds of them. I mined a ton of resources, mainly coal and iron, on the side of a giant mountain. The density of ores here was pretty immense. I had found some cool locations to save for later for resource gathering. I also found some steep, icy and snowy cliff faces, which I ascended to the top of, with dangerous monsters and creatures sitting atop their peaks. This was going to be a problem. After picking up the leftover pieces and regaining my composure, I slayed the beast and got back on my feet. I also found some emeralds on top of the mountain, right next to a stone brick graveyard. In the graveyard was some pretty poor loot, but the structure was cool nonetheless. Now, on top of the mountain, I found an abandoned cluster of chests, with precious heavy metals and loot pieces inside. But what had left over all this loot? I was sniped by a skeleton and I was getting colder and colder, covered in frost. But then I realized this would be the first time I would see a dragon, a legendary beast covered in dark blue scales. I had heard the tale of this dragon as a child, the blue drake named Vodaving. I knew what I had to do. My goal was to defeat the dragon. I cut my losses and took back the hardware that I'd acquired all the way back home. Day 18. I returned to the winter peaks and mined away the few emeralds I had found. They would perhaps be useful for trades at the village's stronghold if I was to revisit later. Nearby the dragon, I found the icy tower lair of its servants, full of skeletons and huge zombies and monstrosities. After getting some stronger gear, I revisited the icy tower, making sure I did not enrage Vodaving enough to dispatch of me himself. That was a fight I would perhaps take later, at a point where I was more powerful than I was right now. I was now sporting a set of newly acquired silver-plated armor, more fitting for a werewolf slayer, complemented by chainmail. This meant I could withstand much of what this tower would throw at me, but poisonous spiders lingered inside, and outside the tower, Vodaving swooped around, hovering above, looming over me menacingly and protecting his roost. Day 19. I began to carve a whole collection of oak wood logs in the attic of my house. Being a lumberjack was apparently my new forte. I created a brand new wooden shield with my crafting table and with the many iron bars that I had smelted. I created an iron tower shield, a powerful piece, and it looked amazing with my new silver armor. Now I felt like a hero. It was time to conquer the world. After hiking back up the cliffs, perhaps I had become too overly confident. I used my bow and arrows to snipe at Vodaving from the skies, using the glass tower of ice as my protection, but in a foolhardy front, underestimated my legendary foe. He smashed the walls to smithereens. I tried to seek salvation in a stone tower, but to no avail. I was slain in battle. But this would not be my first attempt. I gathered some sugarcane at a nearby pond by some cattail plants, so I could use it for paper or a farm or whatever I needed to later. I also found a sweet looking house, not inhabited of course. Perhaps they were out on a hunting trip, but finders keepers I guess. I decided to uproot most of their floor, steal all their possessions, destroy all their valuables and just generally be ruthless, disrespecting them even more by leaving 3/4 of their broken house left over for them to find. I did exactly the same thing to another house that I found moments after, except this one had no loot inside, so I got quickly bored of it and decided to take out my anger on their pet pig. Sorry little guy. It became kind of apparent to me this whole pig slaying thing is going to be a recurring theme throughout the retelling of this adventure. It seems everywhere I went I picked on poor piggies. In the middle of the plains I found some more buildings, but the stone tower was what piqued my interest the most. When I broke inside I immediately knew what it was. I was all too familiar with those same winding staircases. It was a dungeon. The roof, however, was extremely useful to get me some more torches. By nightfall, I broke into another poor adventurer's house, smashing into it through their glass windows and plundering their house in a fashion likened to Genghis Khan or Attila the Hun. Day 20. Day 20 opened with the fresh smell of bacon after slaying the pigs. Typical. I found an opening in a forest. Turned out it was a well and I fell straight down it. I felt like one of those princesses who slips down a well in a fantasy fantasy story. Luckily there was no creature down there like there is in horror movies though. I also found something called a violet eyewig in the forest, a disgusting creature that poisoned, weakened, slowed, and blinded me. It killed me of course. I guess I could liken that to being a war moth or a BTEC spider. Sometime later I came across another abandoned structure surrounded by a cemetery. Turned out to be a damaged monastery. I had no clue how old many of these buildings were or why they were left in such a state of disrepair, but it was exciting to explore them, except this one was flooded with water. It was useful for the typical construction materials, but pretty poor in other loot. And can we take a moment to consider how many item frames are just sitting in the water? The bell part of the bell tower was nice though, just for the iron block I guess, but was it really worth further desecrating a holy building for? Most definitely. For some reason slaying chickens gave me a whole bowl of karma after realizing one was possessed by Satan himself. A creepy black phantom that shoots purple fireballs came out of its corpse. Yikes. Not fighting that thing. Later. As I ran away, I came onto the edge of the sea. It looked beautiful as the sun was setting and all that could be seen was the night sky. There were strange floating altars, dotted islands and strange biomes on the sea. It was beautiful, yet I could see nothing due to the time. Day 21. I swam further out onto one of the mystical looking islands. It was full of purple chorus looking plants, with poisonous bushes and flowers on the ground, and mischievous looking multicolored crocodile creatures, which were neutral. I guess I was a bad guy for slaying them. After wading through some trees in the neighbouring forest and jungle, I found a crashed or abandoned hot air balloon in the water. Pretty cool, but I had no clue how to steer that thing. I also got ambushed by some mutant hippogriffs. A fight for another day. Choose your battles wisely. Back at home, I filled out my house with some further chests. I was getting so much loot and still falling into the bad habit of not sorting any of it, so I just needed somewhere to throw it in. Yes, I'm that guy on multiplayer. Deal with it. For some reason at night time, I decided to revisit the island. I wish I could tell you some legendary tale about dying graciously in battle to an army of Persian soldiers, but unfortunately I died to a prickly flower. Anyways, moving on. In the jungle there was a super cool tree house. I climbed up it onto its vines to see what was at the top. I swear there's one guy that's going around building all these and just getting bored of his bases. Either that or that weird mini tree man at the top that I killed actually owned the home. Oh well. I spent most of the nighttime hours on a huge massive rock, another gigantic accumulation of ores that I found. There's never any rare ores in these, but it's almost like some kind of outer space meteorite. Something or someone was blessing me from the skies above. Day 22. Within the vast cover of the jungle trees, I sat below amongst long forgotten Mayan temples with loot inside. I guess you can tell these guys were still in the Stone Age, right? Not exactly the best stuff inside there. The second temple was infested with annoying floating elementals, which made my job harder, blinding me in the darkness and making me walk across literally every booby trap to get cheap loot in the end at best. But then, I saw it. The mythical construct of the old tales. El Dorado, the lost city of gold. A beautiful coliseum with a lake and open goblets with fires illuminating the surrounding area. But it was dominated by flying serpent beasts of fantasy and other similar insidious creatures littered within its interior. If I had been of sound mind, perhaps I would have converted this city into my own domain, but it puts a chill through my spine. Perhaps I had been watching too many movies like From Dusk Till Dawn and thought it may be overtaken by lizard vampire people. Anyways, I guess I got bored quickly as it seemed foresting for melons outside of the city was more interesting to me. Perhaps being a melon farmer is in fact my true calling in life. By a large lake, I also got further revenge on those pixies for tormenting me at the start of my adventure, as one of them yet again ambushed me. They're fast, but not fast enough. Haha, smell you later. As the sunset began to set once more, I found a beautiful biosphere sitting on the ocean. I had to admire such fine craftsmanship. Below it was some green toxic substance of some sort, maybe a kind of acid. I dreaded to think what that actually was. It reminded me of the radioactive waste at the power plant in The Simpsons. Day 23. I found another mossy cobblestone battle tower. Remember when those were hard? At this point I was pretty well geared with my current arraignment to find these kind of easy, but the holes in the ceilings always tend to frustrate me when a million monsters drop down on top of you. I'm not going to lie though, at any level skeletons are always deadly. If you know, you know. After many attempts and revisits, of course being wrong about how easy it would apparently be, I took on each floor, with some of them being absolutely littered and jam-packed full of enemies. If I didn't have a shield and some bandages, I don't know what I would do. One tip, always build a shield just to deflect arrows. Thank me later. And of course with skeletons, another hack is to make them hit each other and turn on each other. Okay, I feel evil now. After cheesing the Cyclops boss at the top by wall glitching and just trolling him, I must say it was pretty satisfying just to see the tower crumble piece by piece, especially when that SCP looking freak of a monster at the top got yeeted in the first blast. Drifting from one segment at a time and seeing all the loot drop, some going to waste, is extremely fulfilling. Day 24. I decided to dabble in my mystical side, tapping into my magical sense of self. I crafted a summoning staff to make use of the elemental creatures that the world has bestowed upon us, bending them to my will and advantage of course. This staff would let me summon different minions to help me in battle, which is pretty necessary when stuff gets tougher. I felt pretty awesome testing it for the first time, having these floating ice shield dudes following me around in an entourage everywhere. I felt like some kind of rap star rolling deep with 4 or 5 bodyguards. Using a compass and a crafted empty book, I created an antique atlas, a map book that I could use to gather navigational data on my world to use for directions later, and also if I died, I know my legendary story and explorer status would be kept alive for years to come. Day 25. Using a strange concoction of bones, gold bars and a diamond, I created an artifact called the Soul Gazer, a stone of sorts that basically lets me capture the souls of creatures to summon them later. Remember, being a powerful warrior is one thing, but being a warrior who can absorb and capture monsters just like Pokemon is a whole other ballgame, and I'm trying to collect the PSA 10 Charizard right here. Now, if we were going to slay Vodaving himself, we had to be equipped. Dealing with creatures from the skies and in the skies would require a legendary mount that could fly. My first best bet was taming a rock, a flying feathered bird usually found in plains and woodland, and I'd need a special food item to do this too to bend it to my will. This required many items like meat to create special avian bird treats to help me subdue it. Now was time to actually find one, which would be tough, but the hard part would be yet to come. The best bet was to wait for nightfall and just sit in the plains and wait to be attacked, or to see one hovering above. It took a long time, but surely I did see one, and with some persistence, it swooped to me and I fed it some treats to make it love me pretty quickly. But catching it whilst it was flying to actually board it was the tough part, and I guess the other bird was mad at me for taking his bird. Insert the Mr. Steal Your Girl meme here. Day 26. I have to say I did get a little carried away on this thing because I was outside my house and protecting it, rightly so, but no ground enemies can even touch you on one of these things. So the army of weird lion dinosaur hybrids were pretty easy to torment, which was kind of hilarious. But eventually something had to give, of course, just my luck. I got poisoned, be it from some arrow or from swooping too low, I don't know, but my bird died and I plunged to the ground and got eaten by the lions. Fun times. Back at base, I crafted the Soul Stone, an upgrade from my previous craftable that allowed me to not only bind animals as pets, but bind them to my soul and thus then actually be able to make them respawn if they died this time. So on that very night, as I waited in the dark, a magical trumpet skeleton shooting fireballs tickled my spirit, but then I killed him. I'm still kind of confused what that even meant. And by chance, another bird. I made it fall in love with me as I usually do, and this time it was bound forever. So next time I let it die, it should actually come back now. Now with bird armor on too, these things do look pretty epic. For some reason though, the other birds do always get jealous of us, and remember, being the alpha animal is always beating the competition. I just wish I didn't have to kill those birds all the time. Maybe this is how the dinosaurs actually got extinct, being jealous of the cool ones. Day 27. I thought I heard a knock on the door. Strange. I didn't exactly have many friends as I lived in the woods as a hermit, but no, they were just the local neighbors saying hello, or so I thought. It turned out to be some tree dudes trying to kill me. Suffice to say, it didn't end well for them, unfortunately, but they'd be back later. With my newly acquired mount, I decided to fly to the skies, with pure courage, shooting arrows at a dragon. This was my chance to train and defeat my first dragon. It wasn't Vodaving, but it was a fighting chance and the next best thing, but it took just one ice ball to drop me straight to my icy grave. I summoned my blue minions once more at home, testing them out. They absolutely eviscerated this one creature, slicing it apart like Gordon Ramsay cuts onions in the kitchen.
Where's the lamb? Dragon sauce!
I say I have a chance versus a dragon with these guys by my side surely. After taking off again, I found this stone structure buried in the ground and descended into it through its opening above. The passageways were extremely tight in this place, just like they are in ancient Egyptian pyramids. There were booby traps linked to redstone blocks which I gathered, cobwebbed hallways and spider rooms. It was pretty dangerous. The thing I hate about spiders is that when they crawl on walls, they seriously start geeking and just deflecting all your hits like they're playing around as Spider-Man or something. It's kind of tough. I can't tell you how many medkits and plasters I actually used in this place to heal up. I think at this point I just need to be sponsored by Elastoplast. Day 28. Most of this day was spent skipping to each spawner room, cracking the spawners, slaying the spiders and zombies, and trying to navigate this harrowing structure, which was like a maze. On the night of this day, I was visited by a Reaper. The devil himself had sent one of his minions to ambush a holy man such as myself, and it worked. But apparently God loves me as I have the ability to respawn in this game, so take that, foul beast. Day 29. After exploring from the sky, I came across another dragon who breathed fire on me from above. Asaku was his name, a powerful fire dragon boss that nearly killed my precious bird companion. We had to land at a nearby house to recoup and recover and reacquire our strength, but this house had been damaged by the dragon. This dragon Asaku was plaguing the nearby city and camp. They had fled because of its torment. I slayed the abandoned farm animals who were ownerless, putting them out of their misery. Definitely not for food or my own personal gain, I'm of course too good of a man for that. I stole the citizens' bed and thieved their goods like a true plunderer. Nearby was another tower. These towers plagued most of the land, and it seemed that I was the only adventurer that could actually put a stop to these structures. Day 30. I made more chests downstairs in my house to fill with loot. My belongings were becoming so much that my attic room just simply was not enough anymore. Luckily, I had 2 floors. Soon I'll have to just live in the basement. Remember how I cheesed that first mob tower? Well, I'm guilty because I did that a second time. In fact, I baited the boss to the lower floor and just sniped him from above. Drastic times take drastic measures. Don't judge me. Oh, sweet, sweet loot. It's so nice that when there's no boss or enemies to actually cause you anxiety, you can just fleece them for everything they've got.